is the last week of June. My hive number 9 is at maximum strength, and it has decided to leave. I opened it 2 days ago, and I found 7 queen cells on 3 different frames. Open cells with royal jelly. Larvae floating in the white milk. Not yet capped. The colony covers 12 frames, and bees are bearding outside the entrance every afternoon. This is peak swarm preparation, and I have a window of approximately 4 days before those cells are capped and the swarm leaves, regardless of what I do. I have several options. Option 1, the Demaree method I covered in a video this spring. Good method, but it requires a third hive body that I do not have available right now because I used my spare boxes for splits earlier in the month. Option 2, destroy the queen cells and hope the colony abandons the swarm impulse. This rarely works once swarm cells are this developed, and it usually just delays the inevitable by a few days. Option 3, split the colony into 2 equal halves. Effective, but it cuts my workforce in half right before the late summer flow my region depends on. Option 4, the Pagden method. The classic British artificial swarm technique developed in the 1800s that gives the colony exactly what it wants, to swarm, but on my terms with both halves staying productive. This is the method I am using on Hive 9 this week. It is the most underused swarm control technique in North American beekeeping because most American beekeeping resources either do not cover it or cover it badly. And that is unfortunate because for the situation I just described, it is genuinely the best tool available. Today I'm going to give you the complete picture of the Pagden artificial swarm, what it is, why it works, exactly how to do it step by step, what happens in the 3 weeks after you do it, and how it compares to the other major swarm control methods you have heard of. By the end of this video, you will be ready to use this technique on your own hive the next time you find yourself standing in front of a colony with open queen cells and a calendar that does not allow you to lose your honey crop. What is the Pagden method? The Pagden method is named after a British beekeeper from the Victorian era, whose technique was documented and refined through the late 19th century by the British Beekeepers Association. It is what beekeepers call an artificial swarm, a controlled split designed to mimic what the colony would naturally do during a swarm while preserving both halves for productive beekeeping. The core principle is elegant. In a natural swarm, the old queen leaves the hive with approximately 60% of the workforce, mostly the foraging bees who fly with her to a new home. The original hive remains with all the brood, all the queen cells, and most of the nurse bees who will raise a new queen from the cells already prepared. Both halves of the swarm typically survive and become independent colonies. The Pagden method recreates this division, but on the beekeeper's schedule, and with both halves remaining under your control, rather than one half flying away to a tree across the road. Here is how it works in essence. You find the queen. You move her along with one frame of brood and most of the flying bees to a new hive body in a new location near the original spot. The original hive stays in place with all the remaining brood, all the queen cells, and the nurse bees attending them. The foragers who were out flying when you did the procedure return to the original location and find the new hive there with the old queen inside. They join her colony. The original location now contains nurse bees and developing brood, including queen cells that will produce a new queen. According to research from the British Beekeepers Association and field studies published in the Journal of Apicultural Research, the Pagden method achieves swarm prevention rates exceeding 90% when applied correctly and at the right developmental stage. That is a remarkable success rate for a technique that requires only one additional hive body and an afternoon of careful work. The Pagden differs from a standard split in one critical way. In a standard split, you divide the colony based on what you take with you, Typically, frames of brood plus the queen go to the new location. The Pagden divides the colony based on bee behavior. You physically move the queen plus brood plus structure to a new location and let the flying bees sort themselves naturally between old and new locations based on where they were programmed to fly. This behavioral sorting is what makes the method work so reliably, because it matches the natural swarm pattern the bees were already preparing for. Why it works. The biology. Understanding why the Pagden method works is critical because it tells you what to expect, what can go wrong, and how to adjust if your specific colony behaves slightly differently from the textbook description. The swarm impulse in a honeybee colony is triggered by three converging conditions: congestion in the brood nest, where the queen has run out of laying space; high colony population creating workforce density that exceeds the hive's volume; and declining distribution of queen pheromone through the overcrowded colony, which signals workers that the queen is being inadequately fed and groomed because there are too many bees competing for her attention. According to research from Dr. Mark Winston at Simon Fraser University, these three triggers combine to produce the construction of queen cells, which is the physical manifestation of the colony's decision to reproduce by swarming. Once queen cells contain larvae and royal jelly, the colony is approximately 1 week from swarming. The Pagden method intervenes by simultaneously addressing all three triggers, but doing so in a way that satisfies rather than thwarts the colony's biological program. When you move the queen and a frame of brood to a new location nearby, you give her a fresh box with empty laying space, eliminating the congestion trigger for her personally. She has room to lay. She has no developing queen cells in her vicinity because you left those at the original location. Her swarm impulse is satisfied because from her perspective, the swarm has happened. She is in a new location with flying bees joining her. Meanwhile, the original location is now in the condition of a post-swarm colony. The queen has left. The brood remains. Queen cells are present and will be tended by the nurse bees who stayed with the brood. A new queen will emerge from the cells, take her mating flights, and begin laying. Both halves of the original colony are now living their version of the swarm outcome. The old queen continues her laying career in the new box. A new queen takes over the old location. Neither half flew away. Neither half lost its productive capacity. The flying bee sorting is the elegant part. Foraging bees navigate by memory of the entrance location they were programmed to during their orientation flights. When you move the queen to a new hive body and place it directly next to the original location, foragers returning from the field land at their programmed location, which now contains the new hive with the queen. The bees that were inside the hive during the procedure, nurse bees and house bees, who have not yet made orientation flights, remain at the original location, which has been moved a short distance away. Within 24 hours, the population distribution stabilizes. The old queen has the foragers. The new location has the nurses and the brood. According to guidance from the British Beekeepers Association, properly executed Pagden artificial swarms result in approximately 70 to 75% of the colony's flying population joining the old queen at the new location. This is approximately the same proportion that would naturally leave with a swarm. The bees do not perceive the manipulation as unnatural because the resulting distribution matches their evolutionary expectations. When to apply the method? Timing is everything with the Pagden method, and getting it wrong is the most common reason the technique fails for first-time users. The correct application window is narrow, but it is unambiguous if you know what you are looking at. The Pagden method should be applied when queen cells are present in the colony but not yet capped. Specifically, you want cells that contain royal jelly and developing larvae, but that are still open at the top. This developmental stage typically lasts 3 to 5 days from when the cells were first started until the cells are capped. After capping, you have approximately 7 to 8 days before a virgin queen emerges. If you apply the Pagden during the open cell stage, the queens developing in the original location will continue to be tended by the nurse bees who remain. The most advanced cell will produce the new queen for that hive. If you apply the Pagden after cells are capped, the procedure can still work, but the risk of the queens emerging during your procedure window increases significantly, and the colony may swarm with one of the virgin queens before you complete the manipulation. According to research from the University of Sussex on swarm preparation timing, colonies with open queen cells responded to artificial swarm interventions with success rates exceeding 90%, while colonies with capped cells showed success rates in the 70 to 80% range. The earlier you intervene during the swarm preparation sequence, the better the outcome. How do you know cells are still open? Visual inspection. Open queen cells are distinctive structures, long, peanut-shaped extensions hanging from the bottom edges of brood frames, typically 2 to 3 centimeters in length. The bottom end of an open cell is not yet closed with wax. You can sometimes see royal jelly inside if you tip the frame to catch the light. Capped cells have a smooth, dome-shaped wax covering at the bottom, end where the open mouth used to be. The visual difference between open and capped cells is clear once you have seen both. The other timing consideration is weather. You need a warm, calm day for the procedure because you will be manipulating open hives for 45 minutes to an hour. Temperature should be above 65 degrees Fahrenheit. Wind should be minimal. Rain in the forecast for the same day or the following day is acceptable, but heavy weather during the procedure can cause significant chilling of exposed brood and is best avoided. The ideal time of day is mid-morning to early afternoon, typically between 10 and 2, when forager activity is high and the maximum number of flying bees are out of the hive. Doing the procedure when most foragers are inside reduces the dramatic flying bee sorting that is one of the method's key mechanisms. You want them out of the hive so they will come back to the new location and join the old queen. What you need to prepare. Before you start the procedure, you need to have everything ready because once you open the colony with developing queen cells, you are committed, and you cannot pause to gather forgotten equipment without significantly disrupting the manipulation. Stage everything within arm's reach the day before you plan to do the work. Equipment list. First, a complete second hive setup. This means a bottom board, one brood box, frames to fill that box, an inner cover, and an outer cover. The brood box should match your existing equipment in dimensions. If you run deeps, use a deep. If you run mediums, use a medium. The frames inside should be a mix of drawn comb and foundation. Ideally, 6 to 7 frames of drawn comb plus 3 to 4 frames of foundation. If you do not have enough drawn comb, use foundation for the additional frames, but understand that the queen will need slightly longer to begin laying productively if she is on foundation only. Second, a queen marking, pen or queen catcher cage. If your queen is already marked from earlier in the season, you do not need this. If she is not marked, you will need to be able to identify her quickly once you find her and confine her temporarily during the manipulation. Third, your standard inspection equipment. Smoker fully loaded with fuel that will burn for at least 1 hour. Hive tool, bee brush, gloves, full veil, and suit. Fourth, a hive stand or temporary base for the new hive location. The new location needs to be within approximately 3 feet of the original hive location for the flying bee sorting to work correctly. The bees navigate by visual landmarks at small scales, and a location more than 3 feet from the original position can result in foragers becoming disoriented and clustering on the ground between the two hives. Some Pagden practitioners place the new hive directly adjacent to the original, touching the original hive on one side. Others place it at a slight offset of 1 to 2 feet. Either works. More than 3 feet starts causing problems. Fifth, a notebook or recording device. You will be making several decisions during the procedure, and you should record what frames went where, the queen's location, and any unusual observations for your follow-up inspections. Placement of the new hive. This is worth thinking through before the day of the procedure. The new hive containing the old queen will be facing approximately the same direction as the original colony and will receive most of the returning foragers. The original location will retain primarily nurse bees who navigate by colony scent rather than visual landmarks. After the procedure is complete, the new hive will function as the strongest colony and the original location will function as a recovering colony with developing queen cells. Position the new hive in the location that will best serve a strong, productive colony during the rest of the season, typically. The spot with the best morning sun and protection from afternoon heat. The original location can move to a slightly less optimal spot over the following weeks once the new queen is established. The day before the procedure, assemble all your equipment, fill your smoker with fuel, position the new hive stand exactly where you want it, and place the empty hive body with frames on the stand so it is ready to receive the queen and her starting frame. Going into the procedure with everything staged means you can work quickly and confidently without breaking concentration to find missing equipment. The step-by-step procedure. Step 1. Light your smoker and prepare both locations. The original hive should be in its normal position. The new hive should be assembled on its stand with the inner cover and outer cover ready to place but not yet on the hive body. Have the frames already in the new hive body but pulled apart to leave a center gap where you will place the queen's frame. Step 2. Smoke the original hive entrance with 2 gentle puffs and wait 60 seconds. Remove the outer cover and inner cover. Apply 1 light puff of smoke across the top bars. Step 3. Find the queen. This is the most critical step in the entire procedure, and you must not proceed until you have positively identified her. Work systematically from one outside frame inward, examining both sides of each frame carefully before moving to the next. If she is marked, this typically takes 2 to 3 minutes. If she is not marked, it can take 15 minutes or longer. Take the time. When you find her, do not lose her. Keep your eye on the frame she is on while you begin setting up the next steps. Step 4. Identify what goes with the queen. The queen will be moving to the new hive along with the frame she is currently on. You want that frame to contain primarily open brood and eggs rather than capped brood. This gives her continuous laying space and signals her to remain in the new location rather than attempting to return to the original. If the queen happens to be on a frame of mostly capped brood, that is fine. She will still work. But if you have a choice and you can identify a frame with the queen on it that contains predominantly open brood and eggs, that is your ideal selection frame. Step 5. Examine the queen's frame for any queen cells. This is important because you do not want queen cells traveling with the queen to the new location. Any queen cells on the queen's frame should be removed before you move that frame. Use your hive tool to gently scrape them off. The queen herself remains on the frame undisturbed. Step 6. Move the queen's frame to the new hive. Lift the frame carefully and walk it the few feet to the new hive location. Place it in the center gap you prepared earlier. The queen should remain on the frame throughout this move. Close up the new hive immediately after placing the frame. Inner cover on, outer cover on. The new hive is now established with the old queen, 1 frame of brood, and whatever adhering bees were on that frame. Step 7. Prepare the original location. Return to the original hive, which now lacks the queen. Look through every remaining frame and identify all queen cells. The cells will be left at the original location to develop and produce the new queen for that colony. However, you should remove all but 1 or 2 cells to prevent the colony from raising multiple queens simultaneously and then swarming when the first queen emerges. Select the largest, most well-formed, open queen cell on a frame near the center of the brood nest. Leave that cell in place. Also, leave a backup cell on a different frame in case the primary cell fails to develop. Remove all other queen cells by scraping them off with your Hive tool. Step 8. Replace the empty space in the original hive. The frame that went with the queen has left an empty space in the original hive. Fill that space with a frame of drawn comb or foundation from your spare equipment. The original hive should now have all its original frames except the queen's frame, plus a replacement frame for the empty position. Step 9. Close the original hive. Inner cover, outer cover. Both hives are now closed. Step 10. Observe for the next 30 minutes. Stand back from the hives and watch the entrance traffic. Within a few minutes, you should see foragers returning to both locations. Most foragers will go to the new hive at the new location where the old queen is now established. Some foragers will go to the original location, which still smells like home. Over the next hour, the sorting will stabilize, and you will see clear differences in entrance activity between the two hives. The new hive will be busier. The original hive will be quieter. Both are normal and expected. The procedure is complete. Total time elapsed from opening the original hive to closing both, typically 45 minutes to 1 hour for an experienced beekeeper, up to 90 minutes for a first-time application. Resist the urge to open either hive for the next 7 days. The queens above and the queen below both need undisturbed time to settle into their new roles. What happens in the next 3 weeks? Understanding the timeline of events after the Pagden procedure helps you know what to inspect for and when. Days 1 through 3 after the procedure. The old queen settles into the new hive and begins laying. Foragers return to the new location and integrate with the new colony composition. The original location adjusts to its new identity as a queenless colony with developing queen cells. Nurse bees who stayed at the original location focus their attention on the remaining brood and on tending the queen cells that will produce the new queen. Days 4 through 7. Activity at both hive entrances normalizes. The new hive shows strong forager activity matching what the original colony was producing before the procedure. The original location shows reduced overall activity, but with active nurse bee function inside the hive. Inside the new hive, the old queen is laying productively, and the foundation frames are beginning to be drawn into comb, where she will eventually lay. Day 7, your first follow-up inspection. Open the new hive briefly to confirm the old queen is present, laying, and that the colony is functioning normally. Open the original hive to check that the queen cells you left are still developing properly. By day 7, the queen cells should be capped with smooth wax covering the bottom opening. If your selected primary cell is intact and properly capped, you can remove the backup cell at this point. This prevents 2 queens from emerging simultaneously and fighting. Days 8 through 15. The new queen develops inside her cell at the original location. She will emerge approximately 7 to 8 days after the cell was capped. Once emerged, she will spend approximately 3 to 5 days strengthening and orienting to the hive before taking her first mating flights. Days 15 through 21. The new queen takes mating flights. These are the most vulnerable days of the year. Entire process. The queen leaves the hive multiple times to mate with drones during this period. And any factor that prevents successful mating threatens the entire procedure. Weather is the primary risk. If your area experiences extended periods of rain or cold during the mating window, the queen may not successfully mate, and you may need to introduce a new queen or combine the original location back into the new hive. Day 21 through 28. The successfully mated queen returns to the hive and begins laying. According to research from Dr. Keith Delaplane at the University of Georgia, successful queen mating in temperate climates achieves rates of 80 to 90% under favorable weather conditions and drops to 60% or lower during periods of poor weather. Your follow-up inspection at day 21 to 24 should confirm the new queen is present and laying. You will see eggs in cells if she has begun her laying career. At this point, both halves of your original colony are functioning as independent productive units with their own queens. The Pagden method has succeeded. Now I want to give you a direct, honest comparison between the three main swarm control methods available to North American beekeepers, so you can make an informed decision about which one fits your specific situation. The Pagden artificial swarm, the Demaree method, and the standard even split. All three are effective swarm prevention techniques. They differ in equipment requirements, complexity, and outcomes. The Pagden method. Equipment required, 1 additional complete hive setup. Procedure complexity, moderate. Requires confident queen identification and frame manipulation. Result, 2 colonies of unequal size, with the new hive containing the old queen and most foragers being the stronger of the two, and the original location containing nurse bees and developing brood that will eventually be a normal-sized colony. Primary advantage? Uses bee behavior to sort the populations naturally without forcing artificial divisions. Primary disadvantage? Requires the additional hive setup, and the original location colony will be weaker for several weeks while the new queen develops. The Demaree method. Equipment required. 1 additional brood box and a queen excluder that can be added to your existing hive without creating a second separate colony location. Procedure complexity. Moderate. Similar to Pagden in skill level. Result. 1 colony remains in 1 location with the queen below an excluder and brood above. Primary advantage. No separate colony to manage, no equipment needed for a complete second hive, and the entire workforce remains united for honey production. Primary disadvantage. Requires careful timing of the follow-up procedure 7 days later to manage the queen cells properly. And the geometry of working a tall hive with the additional brood box on top can be physically demanding. The standard even split. Equipment required. 1 additional complete hive setup, same as Pagden. Procedure. Complexity, simplest of the 3, just divide frames roughly evenly between 2 hive bodies. Result, 2 colonies of approximately equal size, both starting from approximately half strength. Primary advantage, easy to execute and produces 2 functional starter colonies. Primary disadvantage, both halves are weak relative to a unified colony, and either may miss the upcoming honey flow due to insufficient foragers. Which method should you choose? The Pagden is the best choice when your primary goal is preventing swarming while keeping at least 1/2 of the colony at full productive strength. If you have an upcoming honey flow within 3 to 4 weeks and you need a strong workforce ready to collect it, the Pagden gives you that. The new hive with the old queen and all the foragers is a production-ready colony immediately after the procedure. The Demaree is the best choice when you do not want to manage a second separate colony and you want to preserve absolute unity of the workforce for an imminent honey flow. If you have spare equipment limitations or you simply prefer working with single colony locations, the Demaree solves the swarm problem within the existing footprint. The standard split is the best choice when you want to grow your apiary and you are willing to accept reduced production from both halves during the recovery period. If honey production this year is secondary to expanding your operation, the standard split gives you 2 starter colonies that will be ready to produce strongly next season. All 3 methods work. None of them is universally superior. The right choice depends on your specific situation, your equipment availability, your honey production goals, and your preference for management complexity. I want to tell you about the first time I did a Pagden because it almost failed, and what saved it taught me something important about this method that no textbook explains clearly enough. It was 7 years ago in late May. Hive number 3 was clearly preparing to swarm. I found 9 queen cells across 4 frames. The cells were open with royal jelly. I had read about the Pagden method but never done it. I gathered my equipment, set up the new hive next to the original, and started the procedure. The first thing that went wrong was queen identification. I was so focused on the queen cells that I did not slow down to find the queen properly. I thought I had her on frame 4. I moved frame 4 to the new hive with what I believed was the queen on it. I closed everything up and walked away feeling proud of myself. 3 days later, I opened both hives for inspection. The new hive had no eggs. The queen I moved was actually a worker bee that I had confused with the queen in my rush. The actual queen was still in the original hive. The Pagden had failed on the most fundamental level. The queen was not where I thought she was. What saved the situation was the original hive's queen cells. With the actual queen still present in the original hive, plus active developing queen cells, the colony was now in a true secondary swarm situation. They were preparing to swarm imminently, with the existing queen leaving with the swarm. I had a window of probably 2 or 3 days to fix the situation before the swarm actually departed. What I did. I went back to the original hive the same afternoon, this time with significantly more care. I worked through every frame and I found the actual queen. She was on frame 6, not frame 4. I marked her this time with a permanent marker so I would not lose her again. I moved her frame to the new hive where the false queen had been 3 days earlier. I returned to the original location and made sure all the queen cells were still present and developing. The corrected procedure worked. The new hive established with the old queen and recovered the foragers that had been confused for 3 days. The original hive successfully raised a new queen from the cells. Both halves came through the summer strong and produced honey. The lesson I took from that first attempt was this: the most common cause of Pagden failure is queen identification error. The procedure depends completely on actually moving the actual queen to the new location. If you move anything else, the entire method collapses. Since that first attempt, I have applied this lesson religiously. Mark every queen at the earliest opportunity. When you find her during a Pagden procedure, confirm her identity twice before moving her frame. Never assume, verify. The other lesson was about resilience. Even when the procedure fails, the colony's biology gives you a second chance if you act quickly. The queen cells that I had not removed were still developing. The colony had not yet swarmed. I had time to correct my mistake. This is why I emphasize that the Pagden method works with bee biology rather than against it. The biology is your backup plan if your execution falters. Trust the bees to handle what they evolved to handle. Your job is to set the conditions correctly and then get out of their way. The Pagden artificial swarm in 7 steps. Identify open queen cells in your colony during late spring or early summer. Prepare your second hive setup adjacent to the original location the day before. Find the queen and verify her identity. Move her frame to the new hive in the adjacent location. Remove all but 1 or 2 queen cells from the original hive. Close both hives and let the flying bee sorting happen naturally. Follow up at day 7, day 14, and day 21 to confirm both queens are functioning. All sources for today are in the description. British Beekeepers Association on Pagden method documentation, Journal of Apicultural Research on Swarm Prevention Efficacy, Dr. Mark Winston at Simon Fraser University on Swarm Trigger Biology, University of Sussex on Swarm Preparation Timing, and Dr. Keith Delaplane at University of Georgia on virgin queen mating success rates. Tell me in the comments which swarm control method you have used and what worked or did not work for you. The British and European beekeepers in this audience have significantly more collective experience with the Pagden than most North American beekeepers, and your insights help everyone watching learn faster. Subscribe so you do not miss the next video. Until then, watch your hives carefully. Late June is peak swarm season in most of North America, and your window for any of these techniques is only days wide. Take good care of your bees.